Hi everyone, Tom Slivick, and welcome to TSPN's News for today. We're in a News in Depth format, and I have with me Professor Emeritus from Boston University, but you are a resident here in Amador County.
Indeed I am.
A wine grape grower.
That's right.
And let me give people your name. It's Angelo Codevilla.
That's right.
Okay, and you wrote a fantastic article that was in Forbs. I believe it came out, did it come out on the 20th?
Something like that.
Okay, and I'm just going to play something. I listen to Mark Levin a lot, and Mark Levin did something I've never heard him do before in his program, and that is spend so much time on somebody's column. And so we're going to hear that, okay?
Very well.
So, Alan, if you can play that clip.
And then as I was preparing for this show today, I came across an article in Forbs on their online site. I didn't see it till about an hour ago. And I read it. And it's not a short article.
Alan, talk back.
And it is, from what I have to say, is one of the best thinkers of our day. Angelo Codevilla, who is with, I believe he's with the Claremont Institute now, which is a wonderful institute, as a matter. Those of you who are downright disgusted with what's going on in this government and feel less and less at home in the Republican Party, you're going to want to hear what this gentleman has written. And he wrote it yesterday, and it was published yesterday at around 5 p.m. I'm going to start it now, but it's too long to complete in the segment, so I will carry it forward into the next segment as well. But I want to encourage you again to turn up the volume and take a listen, because nothing else you hear on the radio, nothing you see on television, nothing else is going to provide you with the information that I think this gentleman does and my conveyance to you. And I can't read it all, but I'm going to read a good chunk of it. He wrote on January 1, 2013, one-third of Republican congressmen, following their leaders, joined with nearly all Democrats to legislate higher taxes and more subsidies for Democratic constituencies. He's talking about this fiscal cliff. Two-thirds voted no, following the people who had elected them. For generations, the Republican Party had presented itself as the political vehicle for Americans whose opposition to ever bigger government financed by ever higher taxes makes them a country class. Yet modern Republican leaders, with the exception of the Reagan administration, have been partners in the expansion of government, indeed in the growth of a government-based ruling class. They have relished that role despite their voters. Thus, these leaders gradually solidified their choice to no longer represent what had been their constituency. He's talking about the Republican Party. But to openly adopt the identity of junior partners in the ruling class. By repeatedly passing bills that contradict the identity of Republican voters and of the majority of Republican elected representatives, the Republican leadership has made political orphans of millions of Americans. In short, at the outset of a 2013, a substantial portion of America finds itself unrepresented, while Republican leaders increasingly represent only themselves. By the law of supply and demand, millions of Americans, arguably a majority, cannot remain without representation. Increasingly, the top people in government, corporations, and the media collude and demand submission, as did the royal courts of old. This marks these political orphans as a country class. He's talking about us. In 1776, America's country class responded to lack of representation by uniting under the concept that all men are created equal. In our time, it's disparate sectors. Common sentiment is more like, who the hell do they think they are? Meaning the Republicans and the ruling class. The ever-growing U.S. government has an edgy social, ethical, and political character. It is distasteful to a majority of persons who vote Republican and to independent voters, as well as to perhaps one-fifth of those who vote Democrat. The Republican leadership's kinship with the socio-political class that runs modern government is deep. Country-class Americans have but to glance at the media to hear themselves insulted from on high as greedy, racist, violent, ignorant extremists. Yet far has it been from the Republican leadership to defend them. Whenever possible, the Republican establishment has chosen candidates for office, especially the presidency, who have ignored, soft-pedaled, or given mere lip service to their voters' identities and concerns.
Okay, we're back, and that was Mark Levin on the Mark Levin Show. I'm going to give him attribution, and he was reading an essay in Forbs written by this gentleman here, Angelo Codevilla, sorry. And Angelo, I had to let Mark say it because no one, I think, gets as fired up as Mark does. Okay, and there's probably not much you want to say with that, but I think everybody gets an idea of what it is you're talking about here, and I think that what we're saying is there's a lot of people probably in America that are disenfranchised in the sense of that, they vote or we vote, but our representatives don't represent us for what we're voting for.
That's correct. How come? Well, former Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott, after the 2010 elections, made it very clear that he expected the newly elected Republicans, most of them elected with Tea Party support, would learn which side their bread was buttered on, and that they would be broken to the mores of Washington, and that they would represent the party rather than the voters who elected them. Unfortunately, this is true to a substantial extent, but a decreasing extent, really, because Republican people elected on the Republican ballot are not these days elected because the party endorsed them. Often they are elected despite the party's endorsement, despite their identification. They're elected because they're endorsed by the Club for Growth, the various pro-life movements, the National Rifle Association, and in other words, any number of substantive issue groups. People vote for their representatives for particular purposes. The Republican Party hasn't figured that one out yet.
Okay, so I think you wrote basically it was like causes. There's a lot of people that are voting for causes.
That's right.
And maybe the cause is we'd like restrained spending.
That's correct.
We'd like the health care. We don't like
this like
healthcare.
that.
We want this
That's
repealed.
right.
We would like this. We would like that. So they're voting on issues, and the party. It seems like once the representatives get there. I mean, look at the election of 2010, when we had 700 throughout the whole country with elected offices, state offices as well, and city offices, I believe, might be in those numbers as well. I don't think cities are. I take that back.
No.
But 700, basically almost like Tea Party candidates that were elected, and gave the House to Speaker Boehner. And Speaker Boehner started off saying, okay, we're going to have like open, normal rules, but we're certainly not there now.
No. This is something that perhaps I can shed some light on. I worked for the U.S. Senate for 8 years, and I'm very well acquainted with normal rules, and they really are quite good for fixing responsibility on representatives and senators. Well, lately, the House leadership and the Senate leadership have done everything in the world to prevent that responsibility from being fixed. Traditionally, when a bill is introduced, it goes to a committee, there to a subcommittee. The subcommittee holds hearings on each and every part of the bill. They then hold a markup in which each member of the committee expresses his views on the subject, offers amendments. The amendments are voted upon. Each item is voted upon. Record votes, goes to full committee, same thing, votes on everything. And then the entire House or Senate votes. Conference committee votes again. None of that is happening these days. All you've got is leadership meetings, 3 or 4 people getting together on very, very large bills, and such as, for example, the healthcare law, about which Nancy Pelosi was entirely correct when she said that you would have to pass the bill first to know what's in it. This is typical of modern legislation, which is not so much about the bill itself, but it is about the powers that the bill grants to bureaucrats who then write the real law. And the so-called continuing resolutions, which fund not this or that little program, one after the other, responsibly voted upon, but the entire government. The question being, do you want the government to exist or not? Well, of course you want the government to exist. But nobody knows what this existence implies.
Okay, it seems like, our language has been taken over to where, it's hardly even you're able to speak about things correctly or get ideas across because of the misuse of the language. We're going to find out more when we come back after this break. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.